morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, out of Voice for Radio. So today, we need to look at a couple of single strike cards. We looked at a couple of new rapid strike cards. Seems like it might be a little bit rude if we do not have a little bit of a look at some single strike cards. And Karen's back! And last time we had Karen, the whole Karen thing wasn't a thing. Now, it is a thing, but we're still talking Karen. We're still talking the Ghost type Elite Four trainer. And last time around, Karen was kind of cool, but honestly, Karen was a little bit exclusive for my liking last time. Karen came around and was only in some little deck, and it was hard to get hold of. No, ladies and gentlemen, Karen's back now. And Karen's got a card for everybody. What we've got is Karen's Conviction. During this turn, your single strikes Pokemon's attacks do 20 more damage to your opponent's active Pokemon for each prize card your opponent has already taken. And frankly, ladies and gentlemen, what we've got here is another single strike card. Single strike are clearly trying to bait people like me, obsessive number nerds. They are trying to bait us into figuring out the maximum amount of damage that can be done by a single strike Pokemon. Because I'll tell you what, this is getting a little bit silly. Of course, we've already seen Single Strike Energy being very much strong energy, but for Single Strike Pokemon, not fighting Pokemon. Or Powerful Colorless Energy for Single Strike Pokemon, not colorless Pokemon. Lets you do an extra 20 damage, so that's quite nice. And of course, there's 4 of them in your deck. And of course, we've got Houndoom, which will allow you to search your deck for one of them and attach it to a single strike Pokemon. So that's quite good. And of course, we've got Emboar, that lets your single strike Pokemon do an extra 30 damage. And I know that that might seem awkward to get into play, but don't forget we've got Mustard, that if it's the last card in your hand, lets you search for a single strike Pokemon in your deck and bench it. Yes, even if it's a stage 2. Kind of like Maxie's, and then you draw 5 cards. Kind of like Maxie's, but for single strike Pokemon, and you search your deck for the Pokemon, not your discard pile. Sorry again on that one. And now we've got this. And what we're doing with single strike Pokemon is exactly what Pokemon are trying to sell us on for single strike Pokemon. And that is one big attack. Let's just go and do a whole bunch of extra damage. And I'll tell you what, ladies and gentlemen, this is working. It also confirms that Karen is double Iris. Because back in Plasma Blast, we had Iris that said that during this turn, your Pokemon's attacks do 10 more damage for each prize card your opponent has taken. And now this does 20 damage more for each prize card your opponent has already taken. It's a far cry from Buck's training, which just did an extra 10 damage. So it did let you draw 2 cards, let's be clear. So this is clearly building up. I mean, at the best here, when this is working to its maximum capacity, that is essentially when your opponent has taken 5 prizes and is about to win the game. At which point, this supporter card lets you do an extra 100 damage. Like, that is absolutely ridiculous, ladies and gentlemen. Absolutely flat out, brokenly, over the top, ridiculously good. A supporter card that lets you do an extra 100 damage. Now, we got Leon in Vivid Voltage, and Leon comes along letting you do an extra 30. Now, to be fair, Leon is always an extra 30. There's no ifs, buts, or maybes here. But also, as soon as your opponent's taken 2 prize cards, this is doing more than Leon, and it only goes up from there. Now, obviously, your opponent can try and play around this. Your opponent can try and go from 3 prizes down to 0, for instance, and that will work. But the thing to bear in mind here is that that's not always going to be possible for your opponent. They're not always going to be able to pull it off. This, a lot of the time, and there's no guarantee, but a lot of the time, this is going to allow you to really get some big, giant game-ending KO. It really is silly. And like I say, that's before we build in Single Strike Energy and before we build in Emble. And I think if you're playing a Single Strike deck, how is this not a one-off? Like, seriously, how do you build a Single Strike deck and not put one of these in there? Because at the end of the day, right, you're basically talking about an extra 100 damage potentially. But it doesn't even need to be that. Like, if your opponent's taken 3 prizes, it's a supporter card that does an extra 60 damage. That's double Leon. And we've already seen Leon be put into a bunch of decks. I do think this is a 5 Wassy card. And the reason I give this 5 Wassies is because I look at this and I go, I don't see a Single Strike deck where this doesn't see play. I think over the next couple of years, because we know that Single Strike cards are going to at least be printed for the next few sets. So we know we're getting a bunch more Single Strike cards. So I really don't see how this doesn't end up as a one-off in every single one of those decks, many of which we haven't even really seen yet. So yeah, I think this is going to be a card we see over and over and over again. The thing is, we need a good way to recover it, and when we can use Power Pad, right? And that will shuffle 2 supporter cards from our discard pile into our deck. But it really would be nice if we had a way to get these supporter cards back into our hand. Oh, look. It's Welcoming Lantern. Welcoming Lantern is Versus Seeker, but only for Single Strike supporters, which, and the lovely Anton Boulet, who provided our translations here, has pointed this out. There is no way we're getting Versus Seeker back. The fact that this is now coming just for Single Strike supporters guarantees we're not getting Versus Seeker, because this is Versus Seeker, but limited to Single Strike supporter cards. Why would we get this and then get Versus Seeker? That makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. So no, ladies and gentlemen, Versus Seeker ain't coming back. But you know what? That's all right. Because if you're playing a Single Strike deck, this will work. Now, one of the things to bear in mind really quickly here, this is not just for the ones we've seen, it's for the ones that are coming down the road. As it stands at the moment, there ain't much. We got this and we got Bruno. That's it. Bruno shovels your hand into your deck, draws 4 cards. If you had a Pokemon KO the previous turn, you get 7 instead. It's basically Cynthia's Feelings, but you get 1 fewer card if you had a Pokemon KO the previous turn. Yes, that's a little bit mean. I don't know. Sorry. Bruno ain't as good as Cynthia. Because seriously, right, I've completed Pokemon White the other day, and I'm going through the post-game, and I did the thing I usually do when replaying Pokemon games, where I'm playing them a little bit faster than my first run-through, and my Pokemon are a little under-leveled, so I get to the Pokemon League, and I'm rocking, like, level 40, 45 Pokemon. I'm about 10 levels too low, and I'm like, it'll be fine. And I get through without too much hassle. And then, you know, in the post-game, I find Cynthia. No spoiler alert, the game's a decade old. And I find Cynthia, and she's like, hey, do you want to battle? And I'm like, yeah, I beat the Pokemon League. I will take you down. And her Pokemon are all like level 75. And mine are like level 50. And let's just say I got to Garchomp. I took down her first 3. And I have retreated to level up a little bit. It did get a little bit silly. So, yeah, Cynthia's a little bit better than Bruno. But the point is, you can now search Bruno, or you can go ahead and search Karen, Karen's Conviction, that's what it's called. And I tell you what, it's good. It's definitely very, very good. It's a little bit weird, though, because Bruno's a good card, but Bruno is not the kind of card that is going to be just a slam dunk 4 of in every deck. Like, the main supporter cards are still going to end up being Professor's Research and Marnie. They're our best draw cards. And Bruno is probably going to see a bunch of play, especially now we've got this card. But make no mistake about it, Bruno is kind of like a, I don't know, like a 2 of to support your others. That's not great. And that's kind of where I come down here. Karen's... No, already forgotten the full name of the card. Karen something. Help me out, Antoine. Ah, Karen's Conviction. Karen's Conviction is a great card, but it's not an every turn card. It is a tech that comes out to do a bit of extra damage to go and get some key KOs. And it will get some really good KOs. And Bruno is a really good card if you had a Pokemon KO the previous turn. But neither of them are every turn kind of supporters, and that's where we need to come down on this a little bit. This is a phenomenal card, but at the moment it's only getting these two supporter cards back, and neither of them are every turn kind of cards. Now, to be honest with you, playing one of each and maybe one of these lanterns might be the way to go. But are you really going to draw the lantern at the right time? Because you don't want to be playing 4 Welcoming Lantern unless you can get back any of your supporters, and you can't. You know, the other big one is Boss's Orders. It's your Gusting supporter, and that ain't coming back with Welcoming Lantern. So, yeah. I'm a little bit worried here. I'm worried that we don't have the supporter cards at the moment to support this card. I think it's a phenomenal card, and I think if we get a couple more really good single strike supporters, it will be a flat-out awesome, redonkulous, phenomenal, crazily awesome card. But I think at the moment, it can get back to tech supporters. But would you really rather have this over Palpad? Yes, I know it goes to your hand rather than the deck, but Palpad can get back 2 Boss's Orders, and then you can try drawing into them. This will get back a Karen if you draw it at the right time, and if Karen's already in your discard, but you're probably only playing 1 Karen anyway. I'm still giving it 4 Wassies, but I'm giving it 4 Wassies largely on potential. I think there is a huge amount of potential here, and I think there is an excellent chance that in the future it will be flat out amazing, but I don't think we're there yet. But as always, ladies and gentlemen, I'd love to know what you think. So let me know in the comment section, would ya? Go nuts, be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWassie, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCG Radio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that good stuff, head on over to patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can do exactly that. But by far the most important thing as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.